Hello everyone, welcome to StudyIQ. In this lesson, we'll discuss last 1 year current affairs of environment. This is part 4 series of environment current affairs. This particular lesson will be immensely beneficial for all those who are appearing for Civil Services 2017. I am Bhumika Saini. I have done my engineering from NIT Jaipur. StudyIQ has launched various pendrive courses for SSC examination, bank examination, other government exams, and very soon UPSC pendrive course will be launched in June 2017. So the whole current affairs of environment has been bifurcated into various sections. In the part 1, we had discussed in detail the current issues related to pollution. In the next part, that is in part 2, we had discussed about species that were in news in last 1 year and efforts related to their conservation. In part 3, we had discussed about climate change and issues related to climate change that were in news. Then in this lesson, we'll be discussing all the organizations and convention. In the upcoming lessons, we'll discuss about important days and reports, and separately we'll discuss the miscellaneous section. So let's start with the conventions and organization. Now, before understanding the conventions and organization, let me give you a chronological framework in which things have evolved. So in 1948, IUCN, that's an organization, International Union for Conservation of Nature and Natural Resources, this IUCN was set up. In 1961, World Wildlife Fund was set up, and this fund is mainly for protection of this wildlife, etc. Then in 1972, an important conference, that is Stockholm conference, it took place, and in 1972 UNEP was also established. So remember, in 1972 two things had taken place, that is Stockholm conference on environment and UNEP, that is United Nations Environment Program. Then in 1973, a very important convention, that is Convention on International Trade in Endangered Species. This convention was signed, and this is mainly for protecting the endangered species, for illegal to curb the illegal trade of the parts of endangered species. Then in 1992, this is the most important summit that had taken place with respect to environment, that is Rio Earth Summit. It took place in 1992, and three things mainly had formed in this summit. One was UNFCCC, that is United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change. This was a convention that was signed under Rio Earth Summit for climate change. Okay. Second thing was CBD, that is Convention on Biological Diversity. So this convention was also signed under Rio Earth Summit, and this was mainly for protecting the biodiversity. Third thing that was established was Agenda 21, that is to set an agenda for 21st century, mainly to ensure sustainable development. So the three things that were mainly, they came out of this 1992 summit was one related to climate change, that is UNFCCC, second related to biological diversity, that is CBD, and third related to sustainable development, that is Agenda 21. Okay, now after 20 years of this 1992 summit, in 2012 Rio Plus 20 summit took place, that is a United Nations Conference on Sustainable Development. So this was mainly to review the how far UNFCCC, CBD and this Agenda 21 principles have been implemented. Okay. In recent times, we will be seeing about this Paris Agreement, that is under UNFCCC. Under UNFCCC, we every year we have COP, that is Conference of Party. So this Conference of Party, it was the 21st Conference of Party. It took place in Paris, and Paris Agreement was finalized in this COP21. Then in 2016, last year, that is COP22, it took place in Marrakesh, and it's a place in Morocco. This year, COP23 will take place in Bonn in Germany. So let's discuss all these conventions and protocols in detail. So before moving on with the conventions and protocol, let us understand what's the fundamental difference between a convention and a protocol. So a convention is a meeting or a gathering to formulate or deliberate on a generally accepted principle. Now, if I ask you that UNFCCC, this is a convention on climate change. So all the countries, they will come and they will deliberate on issues related to climate change, and they will lay out a framework on a generally accepted principles. So that will be on climate change. If it is CBD, that is Convention on Biological Diversity. So all the countries, they will meet, they will gather, and they will formulate or deliberate on issues related to biological diversity. Okay. If it is Vienna Convention is on this ozone depletion. Okay, so if it is Vienna Convention, so they will deliberate on issues related to how to protect ozone, right, or how to curb this ozone hole. So this is a convention. Now a protocol is always attached to a convention. So within a convention you will have protocol. For example, in Vienna Convention we have Montreal Protocol, okay, and Montreal is a place in Canada. In UNFCCC we have Kyoto Protocol, okay. So always a protocol is attached to a convention. A protocol to the convention is an agreement that diplomatic negotiators, they formulate and sign as the basis for a final convention. So in order to better implement the principles of this convention, a protocol is laid out. And for example, Kyoto Protocol was laid out in order to curb climate change. Montreal Protocol, a part of Vienna Convention, was it laid out detailed principles as to how we need to curb the ozone depleting substances. So this is the difference between convention and protocol. Okay, so this is just the chronological order. Like Ramsar Convention on Wetlands, it was signed in 1971. Then Stockholm Conference, I have told you, 1972, this was a very important conference. And after this only UNEP, that is United Nations Environment Program, this was set up. Okay, then convention concerning the protection of world cultural and natural heritage. You might have heard about UNESCO world cultural and natural heritage sites. There are various cultural and natural heritage sites that have been that are covered under this UNESCO heritage sites in India as well. So this convention was signed in 1972. Then CITES, I have told you, Convention on International Trade in Endangered Species, it was signed in 1973. Then CMS Convention, that is Convention on Migratory Species of Wild Animals. This is also known as CMS or Bonn Convention because it was signed in Bonn. Now Bonn is a place in Germany. So it was signed in 1979. Then World Conservation Strategy, this was laid out in 1980. There was a Nairobi Declaration, it was in 1982. Then World Charter of Nature, again it was in 1982. Then this Vienna Convention, it was on ozone layer, it was signed in 1985. And a protocol under Vienna Convention, that is Montreal Protocol for ozone depleting substances, it was signed in 1987. Then other conventions and declaration like Helsinki Declaration, it was signed in 1989. Then there was a Basel Convention on Hazardous Waste in 1989. Earth Summit, I have told you, this is very important summit that took place in Rio in Brazil. And in the Earth Summit we had this UNFCCC, this convention was signed. Then CBD, this convention was signed. And a third one was Agenda 21. Okay, so all this was in 1992. Then in there was another convention, that is Convention on Desertification. So it was signed in 1994. Kyoto Protocol is a protocol under UNFCCC that was signed in 1997. Then Stockholm Convention, this is also important. Remember, this is Stockholm Convention. In 1972, Stockholm Conference was different and the Stockholm Convention is different. Stockholm Conference in 1972 was on environment. Stockholm Convention, this is on persistent organic pollutants, and this was signed in 2000. Then there was a Johannesburg Declaration in 2002 and UN World Summit, it took place in 2005. So we'll be discussing in this lesson in detail all these conventions and protocol. So let's start with IUCN. Now what is IUCN? This is International Union for Conservation of Nature and Natural Resources. It is an international organization working in the field of nature conservation and sustainable use of natural resources. As I told you earlier also, it was established in 1948. Its headquarters is in Gland, Switzerland, and it is, remember, it's not a member or part of UN, but it has observer and consultative status at UN, and it plays a very important role in implementation of several international conventions. How it plays a role, that we'll discuss now. See, it is best known for compiling and publishing the this IUCN Red Data List. This I have already discussed when I was discussing the part 2 of environment, that is conservation of species. In that particular lesson I have told you how this IUCN categorizes various species like threatened species, critically endangered, vulnerable, near threatened, then least concern, extinct in wild and extinct. So these are the various classification or the categories in which the species are kept. Okay, and this red data list is compiled by IUCN. IUCN was one of the few NGOs formally involved in the preparation of United Nations Conference on Human Environment, that is Stockholm Conference. Remember, it was a conference in 1972. Stockholm Convention is different. It was Stockholm Convention on Persistent Organic Pollutant. Okay. To establish a stable financial basis for its work, IUCN participated in setting up World Wildlife Fund. So it also had helped in setting up of that is World Wildlife Fund, and now the Worldwide Fund for Nature. IUCN provides technical evaluation and monitoring for convention concerning the protection of world cultural and natural heritage. So it also provide monitoring and technical evaluation assistance. Then CITES, that is Convention on International Trade in Endangered Species of Wild Flora and Fauna. IUCN is a signatory part, and CITES Secretariat was originally launched with IUCN. So these are the various things that IUCN, that is the role that IUCN is playing. Then Ramsar Convention, this is a convention on wetlands. The Secretariat is still administered from IUCN's headquarters. In 1975, IUCN started work on the World Conservation Strategy. So these are the main things that IUCN is involved in. So let's discuss in chronological order the various conventions. So one is Ramsar Wetland Convention. So Ramsar Convention on Wetland, this is International Treaty for Conservation and Sustainable Use of Wetland. It is also known as Convention on Wetland. It is named after the city of Ramsar in Iran. Okay, so in Iran there is a place Ramsar where this convention was signed, and this was signed on 2nd of February 1971. That's why on 2nd of February each year we celebrate World Wetland Day, and theme for 2017 was Wetland for Disaster Risk Reduction. Okay, number of party to this convention is 169. And the main philosophy behind Ramsar Convention is wise and sustainable use of wetlands. Okay, wise use means maintenance of ecological character within the context of sustainable development. And why do we need such a convention? Because 64% of world wetlands have disappeared in the last century. Now there is a conference of party in Ramsar Convention also. As we have conference of party in UNFCCC, we have conference of party in CBD, that is Convention on Biological Diversity. We have conference of party in Ramsar Convention as well. So COP is the convention's governing body, consisting of all the government that have ratified the treaty. India has already ratified it. It meets every 3 years. Remember, this COP of Ramsar Convention is meeting every 3 years. But in case of UNFCCC, it is meeting every year. Most recent COP 12 was held in Uruguay in 2015. COP 13 will take place in Dubai, UAE in 2018. Under this convention, the contracting parties, they commit to work towards a wise use of all the wetlands. They designate the suitable wetlands under the list of wetlands of international importance. We also call it Ramsar list. So in India, there are 26 wetlands that are under the Ramsar list. Okay, and then all the parties, they cooperate internationally on transboundary wetlands, shared wetland systems, and shared species. Okay, so Ramsar site, at the time of joining the convention, each contracting party undertake to designate at least one wetland site for inclusion in the Ramsar list. And what does this inclusion in Ramsar list means actually? The inclusion of Ramsar list in the inclusion of any wetland in the Ramsar list, it embodies the government's commitment to take the steps necessary to ensure that its ecological character is maintained and that wetland is well preserved. Okay, the list of wetlands of international importance included somewhere around more than 2000 Ramsar sites, and country which has the highest number of sites is UK with 170. Country with greatest area of listed wetland is Bolivia. Okay. Now, what is the criteria that is being followed for a wetland to be included in a Ramsar list? So there are various criteria. You need not remember it. Just for information, I have included it. If the site is representative, rare, or unique example of a natural or near natural wetland type within the appropriate biogeographic zone, then it will be included in the Ramsar list. If it supports vulnerable, endangered, or critically endangered species or threatened ecological communities, then it can be included under Ramsar list. If it supports population of plant or animal species important for maintaining the biological diversity of a particular biogeographic region, if it regularly supports 20,000 or more water birds, if it supports 1% of the individuals in population of one species or subspecies of water birds, if it is an important source of food for fishes, spawning ground, nursery, or migration path on which fish stocks either within the wetland or elsewhere. So these are the various criteria for including any wetland in the Ramsar list. Now there is this is important, that is Montreux's record. Montreux's record is a register of wetland site on the Ramsar list only where changes in ecological character have occurred or are occurring or are likely to occur as a result of technological development, pollution, or other human interference. So remember, within the Ramsar list, there is a separate register where those wetlands are included, where significant ecological character have significant changes in the ecological character have occurred in those particular wetland. So it is maintained as a part of Ramsar list. If you see in India, there are 26 wetlands under Ramsar list, and out of those 26, 2 are under Montreal's record. Okay, if a wetland of international importance is brought under Montreal's record, what does it imply? Why do we need to create a separate register for that? Because the country in which the wetland is located should enact a law to prohibit any human activity within 5 kilometers from the edge of the wetland, and proper measures have to be taken by the national government to ensure the ecological character of that particular wetland is restored. Okay. So let's discuss now. There are other international organization partners in this Ramsar Convention. So Ramsar Convention works closely with 6 other organizations known as international organization partners. One is BirdLife International, then IUCN, we have discussed this, then International Water Management Institute, Wetlands International, World Wildlife Fund, International Wildfowl and Wetland Trust. So these are the various organizations that are working closely with the Ramsar Convention. So now let's discuss wetlands in India, which wetlands are in Ramsar list and which are in Montreal's record. So convention, it entered into force in India on 1st February 1982. It was signed in 1971, that is on 2nd February 1971, but India ratified it later in 1982. India has 26 sites designated as designated under Ramsar list. And currently 2 wetlands of India are in Montreal's record, as I have told you. One is Keola Dev National Park in Rajasthan, and second is Loktak Lake in Manipur. Okay, Chilika Lake was earlier placed in this record, but it was later removed once the ecological character was restored. So these are the 26 wetland under Ramsar list. There are various wetlands in India, more than 2000, but out of that 26 are in the Ramsar list and 2 are in Montreal's record. So we have Vuller Lake, Hokera wetland, Surinsar Mansar, Somoriri. These are all the wetlands in Jammu Kashmir. Then Pong Dam, Chandartal wetland, Renuka wetland, these are in Himachal Pradesh. Then in Punjab we have another 3 wetlands. Then in UP, Upper Ganga River. In MP, Bhoj wetland. In Rajasthan, 2 wetlands, Sambal Lake and Kevla Dev. This one is under Montreal's record as well. Then Nal Sarovar Bird Sanctuary in Gujarat. Then in Andhra we have Koleru Lake. In Tamil Nadu, Point Calamere Wildlife and Bird Sanctuary. Then in Kerala, these are mainly the backwaters, that is Vembanad Coal Wetland, Shashtamkota Lake and Ashtamuddi wetland. In Odisha we have Chilika Lake. In Odisha we have another one, that is Bhitarkanika. This wetland is also famous for mangroves. Then in West Bengal we have East Kolkata wetland. This was in news. East Kolkata wetland was in news. Then in Assam we have Dipor Beel. In Manipur we have Loktak Lake. This is also under Montreal's record. And in Tripura we have Rudrasagar wetland. So remember these wetlands. Okay. So this is just a state-wise list of all the wetlands. This I have already discussed. So you can just go through it. Now, Wetlands International, this is one of the international organization that is helping in proper implementation of Ramsar Convention. So it's a global NGO that works to sustain and restore wetlands and their resources for people and biodiversity. It is an independent, non-profit organization supported by government and NGO membership from around the world. So the main work that it is involved in is research, advocacy, engagement with government, corporate and international policy fora and convention. So these are the main works of this Wetland International. So let's discuss this question with reference to conservation organization called Wetlands International. Which of the following statements are correct? First, it is an inter-government organization formed by countries which are signatory to Ramsar. So remember, it is saying that it's an inter-government organization formed by countries which are signatory to Ramsar. Second, it is saying that it works at the field level to develop and mobilize knowledge, use the practical experience to advocate for better policies. So just attempt this question and then answer it in the comment section. The next one is World Heritage Convention 1972. This is another convention. This convention recognized the way in which people interact with nature and the fundamental need to preserve the balance between the two. So this convention, it actually defines the kind of natural or cultural sites which can be considered for inscription on World Heritage List under UNESCO. So remember, UNESCO is the main organization that prepares this list, and it is mainly it prepares a separate list of natural heritage sites and cultural heritage sites. Okay, so this was a convention, that was World Heritage Convention in 1972. There are total 35, 27 cultural, 7 natural and 1 mixed World Heritage sites in India that are recognized by UNESCO. Now there's another convention. This was not convention, this was a conference. I have told you this was a very important conference, United Nations Conference on Human Environment, held at Stockholm in 1972. This is generally known as Stockholm Conference, and it was the first declaration of international protection of environment. So that's why this conference is very important, and it led to the formation of UNEP, that is United Nations Environment Program. This was established by UNGA in pursuance of the Stockholm Conference. Okay, and this was the first conference for protection of environment. Okay. Next, there was a Nairobi Declaration. It was in 1982 to Stockholm Conference. Remember, Stockholm Conference, it was in 1972. So in 1982, that was the 10th anniversary of Stockholm Conference. There was a declaration that was adopted at Nairobi for celebrating the 10th anniversary of Stockholm Conference on Human Environment in 1972. The declaration envisaged the creation of a special commission to frame long-term environment strategies for achieving sustainable development up to the year 2000 and beyond. So remember, Nairobi Declaration, this was a declaration mainly for laying out long-term environment strategies, and for this was mainly in pursuance of the 10th anniversary of Stockholm Conference. Let's discuss another convention. This convention was in 1973, that is Convention on International Trade in Endangered Species. Okay, and India is a party to it. So this was signed in 1973. The conference aims to control or prevent international commercial trade in endangered species or products derived from them. So for example, animal skin, horn, hides, all these there is illegal trade of these products of endangered species. So that is affecting the or that is threatening their survival. So for that, this convention is mainly for curbing this illegal trade in endangered species of wild flora and fauna. Convention does not seek to directly protect endangered species, rather it seeks to reduce the economic incentive to poach these endangered species and destroy their habitat by closing off international markets. So that is mainly for curbing the international trade in endangered species. So it is an indirect approach, mainly to reduce the economic incentive. Okay, India is a party to the convention India became a party to the convention in 1976. International trade in all wild flora and fauna in general and species covered under convention is regulated through, there is a law in India, that is, there's a very strong law, Protection of Wildlife Act 1972. Okay. Then there was another convention, that is Convention on Migratory Species of Wild Animals. This convention was signed in Bonn, that is a place in Germany. So it is also known as Bonn Convention. So this was signed in 1979. Convention on the Conservation of Migratory Species of Wild Animals, also known as Bonn Convention. So the main aim of this convention is to conserve terrestrial, marine and avian migratory species throughout their range. So it covers all the type of migratory species, terrestrial, marine and avian. Okay. This convention facilitates the adoption of strict protection measures for endangered migratory species, and that is mainly through international cooperation. This convention has 2 appendix. Appendix 1 lists migratory species that are classified as endangered and where urgent international cooperation is necessary. Appendix 2 lists other species that require or would benefit significantly from international agreements under the convention. So Appendix 1 lists all the species that are highly endangered and urgent attention is required. This convention, it came into force in 1983 once it was ratified by various countries, and marine turtles, Siberian the Siberian crane, then this dugong, these are all part of the conservation under this convention which are related to India. Okay. Then Vienna Convention, this was convention, this I have already discussed when I was discussing part 3 of environment current affairs series. In that I have taken climate change, and in climate change related issues I have discussed ozone hole in detail. So I had discussed Vienna Convention, Montreal Protocol, Kigali Agreement, Kyoto Protocol, Paris Agreement. This I have already discussed in detail in part 3. So I would suggest you to refer that part 3 for understanding ozone hole in detail. So Vienna Convention for Protection of Ozone Layer, it was signed in 1985. It was adopted in 1985 on 22nd March, and this convention is mainly for protection of ozone layer. And later, under this convention, Montreal Protocol on substances that deplete ozone layer was adopted in 1987. Okay. And recently, Kigali Agreement, that is Kigali Amendment, that is an amendment to Montreal Protocol only. This was signed. Montreal Protocol on substances that deplete ozone layer, 1987, to the Vienna Convention. This we've already discussed. So in this agreement, it acknowledged that certain countries have contributed to ozone depletion more than others. So it recognizes that a nation's obligation to reduce current emission should reflect its technological and financial ability. So that CBDR principle, that is common but differentiated responsibility, that is those countries that are emitting more emission, they should take more responsibility, and they have more obligation to reduce the current emission. Now, ozone depleting substances regulation and control rules 2000 were drafted under Environment Protection Act 1986 in order to comply with the Montreal Protocol. Kigali Agreement, I have already discussed this in the part 3, so I am not discussing it in detail. I had told you that this was mainly to reduce the HFC, that is hydrofluorocarbon, and in this 3 groups have been formed. India is in the 3rd group. So I am not discussing it in detail. You can refer the part 3 of environment series. Another one was World Commission on Environment and Development. This was signed in 1987. This is also known as Brundtland Commission because he was the chairman of this. It was started by UN General Assembly, a resolution in 1983, and it was based on a 4-year study entitled Our Common Future. Okay. It's also known as Brundtland Report in 1987. So in this, it was the first time that sustainable development was officially defined. So the main underlying theme or principle of this particular commission was to ensure sustainable development. So remember this Brundtland Commission, and 1987, it was based on a study that is Our Common Future, and the sustainable development term was officially defined first time in this commission. Then let's move on to other convention, that is Basel Convention on Transboundary Movement of Hazardous Waste. It was signed in 1989. Now, because this whole lot of industrialization was taking place, and there was increasing public resistance to the disposal of hazardous waste in accordance with this principle of NIMBY, that is not in my backyard syndrome. And to an increase of disposal cost. So there was a problem that was witnessed in 1980s related to disposal of hazardous waste, and that's why this convention it was signed in 1989, but it came into force in 1992. So the main objective of this convention was to reduce transboundary movement of hazardous waste, to minimize the creation of such waste. One is to reduce the movement, second is to minimize the creation of such waste, and third is to prohibit their shipment from developed countries to least developed countries. Right? So this is reducing the movement of hazardous waste, that is transboundary movement, minimizing the creation of such waste, and prohibiting their shipment from developed countries to least developed countries. Then India ratified the convention and enacted Hazardous Waste Management Rules Act 1989. It encompasses some of the Basel provisions related to notification of import and export of hazardous waste, illegal traffic, and the liability. So these hazardous waste management rules were mainly framed by India in order to comply with the Basel Convention. Basel is a place in Switzerland. Let's discuss the most important summit, that is Rio Earth Summit in 1992. This is also known as United Nations Conference on Environment and Development. Okay, so I have told you this Rio Summit 1992, this is actually a continuation of Stockholm Declaration, because in 1972 first time a conference was it took place on emphasizing on environment. Okay, then as a continuation of it, in after 10 years, on the 10th anniversary in Nairobi Declaration was signed in 1982 on the 10th anniversary of Stockholm. Okay, just remember the chronology. And then after 10 years of Nairobi, we had Rio Earth Summit, that is in Rio in Brazil, and it was signed in 1992. Okay, and it was attended by over 150 countries, hence it is also known as Earth Summit, because most of the countries, they participated during that time. It discussed the global and environment problems very widely, and that's why I had told you the major things that came out of this was, one is Rio Declaration, that is a statement of broad principles to guide national conduct on environment protection and development. Second, I had told you Agenda 21, that is mainly for that was mainly a long term plan or a long term agenda for 21st century in order to ensure sustainable development. Then third, I have told you that is UNFCCC, framework on United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change. Then the fourth is Convention on Biodiversity, that is CBD. So these were the main things that came out of this. And now if we see Kyoto Protocol, if we see Paris Agreement, Marrakesh Agreement, all these are COP, that is Conference of Party of UNFCCC. Okay, so this is what a flowchart: Rio Earth Summit, then UNFCCC, Convention on Biological Diversity, Sustainable Development. Under this, Agenda 21 and Rio plus 10 Summit. This we'll discuss separately. UNFCCC, here every year Conference of Parties takes place. That's what I've told you. Kyoto Protocol in 1997, then in 2015 Paris Agreement, then Marrakesh Agreement in 2016, and in 2017 it will be in Bonn, Germany. Then in CBD, there is this Cartagena Biosafety Protocol. So it's a protocol under this convention. Nagoya Protocol, it's a protocol under this convention. And then Aichi targets. We'll be discussing this in detail now. So let's discuss Rio Declaration. As I've told you, in this Rio Declaration, that was a statement of 27 principles for the guidance of national environment behavior and enlisting general rights and obligation on environment protection. Okay, and these Rio principles, they place human beings at the center of sustainable development concerns by stating that humans are entitled to a healthy and productive life in harmony with nature. So in long term, the concept of sustainable development has to be established. Okay, so this was under the Rio Declaration. There were 27 principles that mainly aimed at sustainable development. So now let's discuss each. So first I'm discussing UNFCCC, and this I'll discuss CBD and the remaining one, and then I'll discuss sustainable development and the Agenda 21, etc. So UNFCCC, that is United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change. It was signed in 1992 under Rio Earth Summit. This primary goals of this convention were to stabilize greenhouse gas emission at levels that will prevent dangerous anthropogenic interference with global climate. So the primary goal was to prevent any due to anthropogenic factors, this GHG emissions was taking place. So mainly to stabilize the greenhouse gas emission. And convention, it embraced the principle of CBDR, that is common. Every country has common responsibility to protect the environment, but there is differentiated responsibility, because every country, especially the developed countries, they had already undergone this process of development, and they were mainly responsible for more of greenhouse gas emissions. So they have more responsibility, they have more capability with respect to finance, with respect to technology and resources. So that's why differentiated responsibility. India signed the agreement in June 1992. It was ratified in November 1993. And under this, Kyoto Protocol, Paris Agreement, Marrakesh Agreement, these are all part of UNFCCC. Kyoto Protocol, this I have already discussed in detail in the Environment Part 3 series. So just refer that. This I have told you, the first, the second commitment period was from 2013 to 2020, and recently India has ratified the second commitment period of it. So currently we are actually in the second commitment period. After 2020, we will follow Paris Agreement. Okay. And in this, I have told you there are three main mechanisms, that is CDM, Clean Development Mechanism, then Joint Implementation, and then Emission Trading Platform. So this we have already discussed. Paris Agreement. It was this was an agreement under UNFCCC, mainly for curbing greenhouse gas emission mitigation, adaptation and finance. It will start in year 2020. It was opened on 22nd April 2016, that is the Earth Day, and most of the countries, they have signed the treaty, and some of them have ratified it as well. India has also ratified it. Under this INDC concept, it emerged, that is intended nationally determined contribution, where every country has pledged during this 2015 climate change conference to voluntarily contribute to address the problem of climate change. So India has also laid out its INDC, and it had declared its INDC on 2nd of October, and in this we had mainly aimed at like ensuring that India will make efforts to use more and more of renewable energy. 40% of this whole energy will be produced by renewable energy, and focusing more on solar energy, wind energy, and such things like ensuring more of tree plantation. So such things have been included in the India's INDC. Emission reduction efforts will be made in order to hold the increase in global average temperature to below 2 degrees Celsius. So this is the aim, to limit it to below 2 degrees Celsius by reducing emissions to 40 gigatons or to 1.5 degrees Celsius. So as such, the aim is to limit it below 2 degrees Celsius and if possible to 1.5 degrees Celsius. Then implementation, I have told you it will start in 2020. This has a bottom-up structure in contrast to most international environment law, which are top-down, characterized by standards and targets set internationally. But here, why it is bottom-up? Because every state has voluntarily declared its INDC. Okay, I have told you the difference between Kyoto Protocol, Paris Agreement also. See, in Kyoto Protocol, it was legally binding for some countries, not for everyone, but it was legally binding, especially for Annex 1 country. This I have discussed in the last series, that is Environment Part 3. I have discussed Kyoto Protocol in detail. Paris Agreement is as such not legally binding. It allows for voluntary and nationally determined targets. And Paris Agreement, it also emphasizes on the principle of CBDR. Okay. I've told you that these are not legally binding. It is mainly voluntary in the sense that every country has voluntarily determined its INDC, and there's a plan to provide US 100 billion a year in aid to developing countries for implementing new procedures to minimize climate change. This also we have discussed under Green Climate Fund in the last, that is in Environment Part 3. I have discussed Green Climate Fund, Adaptation Fund in detail. That's a fund within UNFCCC that is mainly to finance the developing countries for implementing or for like putting the technologies or climate resilient technologies. So for that financing will be done under this Green Climate Fund. Okay. And this agreement stated that it would enter into force only 55 countries that produce at least 55% of world's GHG, and US and China, they together contribute roughly around 40% of emission. Now this particular Paris Agreement has come into force because it has already been signed by 55 countries that produce 55% of world GHG. So we have discussed UNFCCC, under COP, Kyoto Protocol, and then Paris, and then Marrakesh. Then now we are discussing the CBD, Convention on Biological Diversity. It was also under Earth Summit, that is the Rio Earth Summit in 1992. It has three main objectives. One is conservation of biological diversity. Second, sustainable use of components of biological diversity. So one is conservation. The second one is sustainable use of biodiversity. And third is fair and equitable sharing of the benefits that arise out of utilization of the genetic resources. So these are the three main objectives of Convention of Biological Diversity. So it was signed in 1992 and later it was ratified. It's a legally binding framework treaty. Remember, it's a legally binding framework treaty. India has already ratified it, and the areas that are dealt by convention are conservation of biodiversity, sustainable use, and equitable sharing. This we have already discussed. This came into force in 1993 because this was later ratified by various countries, and many biodiversity issues are addressed, including habitat preservation, intellectual property rights, biosafety, and indigenous peoples' rights. Then within this CBD, there was a protocol, that is Cartagena Protocol on Biosafety. So Cartagena Protocol on Biosafety, it's a protocol to the Convention on Biological Diversity, is an international agreement which aims to ensure the safe handling, transport and use of living modified organisms resulting from modern biotechnology. So it's an agreement that aims to ensure safe handling, safe transportation and safe usage of living modified organisms that are mainly developed from biotechnology. So these LMOs, that is living modified organism, they may have adverse effect on biological diversity, so one has to take into account the risk to human health. So under Cartagena Protocol on Biosafety, mainly safe handling, safe transportation and safe use of living modified organisms is envisaged. It was adopted in 2000 and it entered into force in 2003. Then there was another protocol. It was also under Convention on Biological Diversity only, but this protocol was on access to genetic resources and fair and equitable sharing of benefits arising from their utilization to the CBD. So it's a protocol under CBD, and the main aim was to ensure fair and equitable sharing of benefits arising from the utilization of genetic resources. Okay, it came into force in 2014, and this is the main protocol under CBD. Then IKE biodiversity targets. These are the main targets. There are total 20 targets. These are 6 goals. These are 5 goals, and under each goal there are various targets. So in total there are 20 targets under this biodiversity targets. So in goal 1, mainly it addresses the underlying causes of biodiversity loss by mainstreaming biodiversity across government and society. In strategic goal B, reduce the direct pressures on biodiversity and promote sustainable use. In strategic goal C, to improve the status of biodiversity by safeguarding ecosystems, species and genetic diversity. In strategic goal D, enhancing the benefits to all from biodiversity and ecosystem services. And in strategic goal E, enhance implementation through participatory planning, knowledge management and capacity building. So these are the 5 goals, and within these 5 goals there are various targets, and in total there are 20 IK biodiversity targets. Now let's discuss the last one, that is sustainable development. In this we'll discuss Agenda 21 Rio plus 10. So Agenda 21, that is agenda for 21st century. It's a comprehensive action plan which gives a future plan in relation to environment and development. This emphasizes on issues like poverty, health consumption patterns, natural resources, financial resource, human settlements and technological advancement. So it also includes energy, climate and other wide range of issues concerning environment and development. So this was mainly to ensure sustainable development, and this agenda is a not a binding document, it's a non-binding document, but it constitutes the key document of Rio. As I've told you, in Rio, UNFCCC, CBD, Agenda 21, these were the three key things that have emerged from this Earth Summit 1992. So Agenda 21 was mainly for ensuring a long-term plan to sustainable development. Then there was a World Summit on Sustainable Development, that was Rio plus 10. It was held in Johannesburg in 2002. It's in South Africa. Reviewed progress and implementation of Agenda 21 since its adoption in 1992. So after 10 years, this Rio plus 10, it was held at South Africa. Johannesburg Declaration on Sustainable Development, it was in 2002. Now I have told you Rio plus 20, that was UN Conference on Sustainable Development. It is also known as Rio 2012, Rio plus 20. Again, it was held in Rio to mark the 20th anniversary of Earth Summit. 10th anniversary was held in Johannesburg, and in this the report was themed The Future We Want. So again, it was the main underlying principle was this sustainable development. Okay. Then there was another convention in 1994. So we have discussed all about 1992 Earth Summit. Now we are moving ahead in chronological order. That is UN Convention on Desertification in 1994. So this was mainly for controlling or curbing the problem of desertification. Okay, so this was a dedicated convention. It had followed a bottom-up approach to international environment cooperation. The convention aims at tackling desertification through national, regional, sub-regional action programs, and India hosts a network on agroforestry, soil conservation. These are various measures through which we can prevent desertification. Okay, and 2006 was declared as International Year of Deserts and Desertification. Then there was a Rotterdam Convention in 1998. So in 1994, we have Convention on Desertification. In 1998, we have a Rotterdam Convention. So this convention was for hazardous chemicals and pesticides in international trade. So it's a multilateral treaty to promote shared responsibility in relation to importation of hazardous chemicals. This convention, it actually promotes open exchange of information and calls on exporters of hazardous chemicals to use proper labeling, include directions on safe handling, and inform purchasers or importers of any known restrictions or bans. So this Rotterdam Convention, it's mainly for international trade in hazardous chemicals and pesticides. So adequate information will be disseminated, proper labeling will be done, directions on safe handling will be issued. So such things are included in this convention. Then there was a Stockholm Convention. Remember, Stockholm Conference was in 1972. That was on environment. Stockholm Convention was on persistent organic pollutants. It was in 2004. So it's an international environment treaty. It was signed in 2001, but after ratification, it came into force in 2004. It aims to eliminate or restrict the production and use of POPs, that is persistent organic pollutants. Now there are 12 POPs that are included under this Stockholm Convention. These are also known as dirty dozens. So this one is intentionally produced POP, aldrin, chlordane, DDT, endrin, heptachlor. These are all the POPs that are intentionally produced. So elimination of production and use is envisaged under the Stockholm Convention. Then unintentionally produced POP, PCBs, hexachlorobenzene, etc. For this, because they are unintentionally produced, so minimization and where feasible, elimination will be done under Stockholm Convention. Now there is another convention. This is the last convention, Commission for Conservation. This is not a convention as such. This is this is also known as convention, because this is a convention on the conservation of Antarctic marine living resources. So it's a part of Antarctic Treaty System. This was an international convention. It was signed in 1982. So the main objective was on conserving Antarctic marine life. So goal is to preserve marine life in the Antarctica region and maintain the environment integrity in and near Antarctica. So the headquarters was in Tasmania, Australia. It was established in large parts to concerns that an increase in krill in the Southern Ocean. Southern Ocean is the ocean that is surrounding Antarctica. That was having a serious impact on population of other marine life, which were dependent upon the krill for food. So the whole food chain was disturbed. That's why this convention was signed, and India has ratified the convention. So remember, India is a party to this, and it's a convention mainly for preserving the marine life near Antarctica region. Now, this is the second question of this lesson. Who among the following grants biosphere reserve status to a given site? It is CBD, UNFCCC, UNESCO, or none of the above. Do mention the answer in the comment section. So now let's discuss the main organization that were in news. We have discussed all the conventions. Now we are discussing all the organizations that were in news. So first, it is National Institute of Animal Welfare. It's a subordinate office under Ministry of Environment and Forest and Climate Change. So this is the office under MOEF. It is one of its kind institute which provides professional education in this field. Its main aim is to promote awareness, disseminate information, impart education about animal welfare, and its discipline in a professional manner. So mainly for promoting awareness and disseminating information about animal welfare. It also strives for creation of enabling environment to prevent cruelty to animals. Then another is Central Zoo Authority. It's an autonomous statutory authority under MOEF. Because it's a statutory authority, so it's actually under Wildlife Protection Act 1972. Every zoo in India, they need to obtain regulation from CZA, that is Central Zoo Authority. It regulates the exchange of animals of endangered category listed under Schedule 1 and 2. So there are various schedules under Wildlife Protection Act. Schedule 1, that for protection of those species, the highest protection is given under Schedule 1. Right, so it regulates the exchange of animals of endangered category listed under Schedule 1 and 2 of Wildlife Protection Act. Its approval under EXIM policy and CITES is required for exchange of any animals between national and foreign zoo, and it also coordinates conservation breeding program of endangered species. So this is the Central Zoo Authority. Then BirdLife International, this is world's largest conservation partnership for conservation of birds and their habitat. I have told you this is also one of the organization that is helping in the this Ramsar Convention also. It builds a global partnership of national conservation organization. It also published important bird areas inventory. So all the inventory of the bird areas is also published by this. Its global office is in UK with 6 regional offices. This is not that relevant, but just remember the aim of this and in what all convention it is helping. Then International Crop Research Institute for Semi-Arid Tropics. It's again an international non-profit organization. It's hosted in India, and the main aim is prosperous, food secure and resilient dry land tropics. So it's a crop research institute for semi-arid tropics. So the main aim is to reduce poverty, hunger, malnutrition and environment degradation in these areas, that is semi-arid areas, generally dry land areas. So main aim is on focusing on research for development, okay, and that too those crops that can survive in those drought conditions or dryland regions. So mainly drought resistant crops. Such crops like the research is taking place in this International Crop Research Institute. It builds expertise in whole value chain from farm management to agribusiness. So this is the main International Crop Research Institute for Semi-Arid Tropics. Now there is a World Meteorological Organization. You might have heard about it, the World Meteorological Organization and Indian Meteorological Department. So this World Meteorological Organization is a specialized agency of UN, and with a mandate of international cooperation for the development of meteorology and operational hydrology. It was established to facilitate the exchange of weather information among countries. So weather information will be exchanged between different countries, and it also helps in monitoring and protecting the environment. So it's an intergovernmental organization that is under UN. It's a specialized agency of UN. Earlier it actually originated from International Meteorological Organization. Then it has its headquarters in Geneva in Switzerland, as I have told you, that's a special agency under UN. Then World Meteorological Organization and UNEP, that is United Nations Environment Program, they jointly create the IPCC, that is Intergovernment Panel on Climate Change. And this IPCC, it issues annual reports, or it issues assessment reports for measuring the impact of climate change and how much climate change has taken place. Okay. So it also directly responsible for the creation of Global Atmosphere Watch. So these are the major things or major role played by World Meteorological Organization. Then there is a National Museum of Natural History. It was established in 1972 under Ministry of Environment. The main aim is depiction of India's flora, fauna and mineral wealth to public. So mainly to disseminate information about India's rich diversity in flora and fauna. It provides out of school facility for education of children and promotes awareness in masses. Then Indian Council of Forestry Research and Education. This is an autonomous organization again under MOEF. It's an apex body in research and education in forestry sector. It focuses on solution based research. So mainly in research and education it is focusing for emerging issues such as biodiversity, desertification, climate change, etc. Then there's a National Biodiversity Congress. It's one of the significant biodiversity mega events in country. This year it was hosted by Kerala State Biodiversity Board. The theme for this year was mainstreaming biodiversity for sustainable development. Okay, so it was from 10th to 12th March. Then National Bureau of Animal Genetic Resources. This was also in news. This institute in Karnal was formed by merger of two institutions. Karnal is in Haryana. National Bureau of Animal Genetic Resources and National Institute of Animal Genetics. Main aim of this is identification, evaluation, characterization, conservation and utilization of livestock and poultry genetic resources of the country. So this is an organization in Haryana, and the main aim is to identify, evaluate, conserve and utilize the livestock genetic resources. Then Zoological Survey of India. It was established in 1916, way before independence, mainly for promoting survey, exploration and research on various aspects of animal taxonomy in Indian subcontinent. So it's a premier Indian organization that is mainly focusing on zoological research and studies, and it is under Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change. The main objectives, there are two types of objective. One is primary, the second one, the other one is secondary. Primary objective include exploring, surveying, inventorying, monitoring of faunal diversity, preparing red data book. So in India, the red data book is prepared by ZSI, Fauna of India and Fauna of States, maintenance and development of national zoological collections, training, capacity building, and human resource development. Then secondary objective includes geographical information system and remote sensing studies on recorded animal diversity, environment impact studies, maintenance of museum at headquarters and regional centers, development of environment information services, and to ensure this India's compliance with CITES, that is Convention on International Trade in Endangered Species. Then collaborative research program on biodiversity with other organizations in India and abroad. Then similar to zoological survey, there is a botanical survey of India as well. This was also set up way before independence. It's an institution set up by government of India in 1890, mainly for surveying of plant resources of Indian Empire. Okay, so British East Indian Company had already established botanical gardens at various places like Pune, Saharanpur, Madras, for mainly for improving their botanical knowledge, for surveying of plant resources, right? So in 1954, government of India, it reorganized BSI. Main objective again were similar to ZSI, like undertaking intensive floristic survey. In ZSI, it was mainly faunal surveys. Then collection, identification, distributing materials, mainly for education and research purpose, and it act as a custodian of authentic collections and documenting plant resources in the form of local, district, state, and national flora. So this is mainly for flora. Zoological Survey of India was for fauna. Now Wildlife Institute of India, this was also in news. This is an autonomous institution again under MOEF. It carries out wildlife research in areas of study like biodiversity, endangered species, wildlife management, forensics, eco development, habitat ecology, and climate change. So it has contributed a lot in studying and protecting wildlife in India. Okay, this institute is in Dehradun in India. Then NTCA, this was an organization that was set up under Project Tiger. Now Project Tiger was established in 1973, mainly for conservation of tigers. So National Tiger Conservation Authority, it was established in 2005 following a recommendation of Tiger Task Force constituted by Prime Minister of India for reorganized management of Project Tiger. Okay, NTCA, it's a statutory body under Ministry of Environment. It was provided statutory status by which act? That is Wildlife Protection Amendment Act 2006. So earlier it was this Wildlife Protection Act, it was amended, and after amendment this NTCA was given statutory status. So what are the main functions of this? The main functions include ensuring normative standards, maintaining the standards in tiger reserve management, preparation of specific tiger conservation plan in any particular region, laying down audit report before the parliament related to like how this implementation of Project Tiger is taking place, then instituting state level steering committees under chairmanship of Chief Minister, and establishment of Tiger Conservation Foundation, then according approval for declaring new tiger reserves. So it actually approves this new tiger reserves as well. Then Animal Welfare Board of India, it's again a statutory body, it's an advisory body, and it is under Prevention of Cruelty to Animals Act 1960. This was also in news recently because this act was in news because of this Jallikattu issue. Initially it was within the jurisdiction of Ministry of Food and Agriculture, but later in 1990, subject of prevention of cruelty to animals was transferred to MOEF. This board, it consists of 28 members and they serve for a period of 3 years. Headquarters are in Chennai, Tamil Nadu. Then main functions include, it oversees animal welfare organization, it grants them recognition if they meet the set guidelines, it appoints key people to the position of animal welfare officers, it provides financial assistance as well to recognized animal welfare officers, and it suggests changes to laws and rules about animal welfare issues. It also mainly is involved in raising awareness by issuing various publications related to animal welfare. Then the Central Water Commission, this was in news that there was a Shah committee that has proposed to merge Central Water Commission and Central Groundwater Board. So that's why it was in news. It's an apex technical organization of India in the field of water resource. It's functioning as an attached office of Union Ministry of Water Resource. Remember, it's Union Ministry of Water Resource, not Environment Ministry. It is charged with responsibilities of initiating, coordinating in consultation of state government schemes for control, utilization and conservation of water resource. So the main things in which it is involved is flood control, irrigation, navigation, drinking water supply, water power development. So all these things are undertaken by this Central Water Commission, and it's under Ministry of Water Resource. Then as we have discussed WMO, that is World Meteorological Organization, there is another Indian department, that is Indian Meteorological Department. It is under Ministry of Earth Sciences. Remember, it's not under Ministry of Environment, and this is the primary agency that is responsible for meteorological observation, weather forecasting, seismology, etc. Headquartered in New Delhi, and it also operates hundreds of observation stations across India and in Antarctica as well. Okay. It is also one of the 6 regional specialized meteorological centers of World Meteorological Organization. So as I've told you, the main responsibility includes forecasting, weather forecasting, meteorological observation, seismology, naming and distribution of warnings for tropical cyclones in the Indian Ocean region. Next, Food and Agriculture Organization. This again is a special agency of UN that leads international efforts to defeat hunger. It was set up in 1945, headquartered in Italy. 194 members, along with India is a member of it, and it's mainly for the main goals include hunger, eradication of hunger, food insecurity, malnutrition, elimination of poverty, sustainable management and utilization of natural resources including land, water, air, climate and genetic resources. So these are the main things that the main goals that this FAO pursue. Then National Green Tribunal, this I have already taken in part 1 of Environment Current Affairs. So I'm quickly just revising it here. NGT, it's a statutory body, it's not a constitutional body, and it was established under National Green Tribunal Act 2010. It is mainly for effectively and expeditiously disposing cases related to environment protection and conservation of forest and other natural resources. So this has been established to assure the right to healthy environment to citizens of India as enshrined under Article 21. That's a fundamental right. The members include currently up to 10 expert members and 10 judicial members, although the Act allows for up to 20 of each. Chairman of the tribunal also serves as judicial member. Chairman of the tribunal is required to be serving or retired Chief Justice of High Court or a judge of Supreme Court. So remember, serving or retired Chief Justice of High Court. It's not judge, it's Chief Justice of High Court or a judge of Supreme Court. Jurisdiction, it mainly include the original jurisdiction on matters related to substantial question relating to environment. Then powers of this tribunal are equivalent to a civil court, and New Delhi is the principal place of sitting of this tribunal. There are other places also, that is Bhopal, Pune, Kolkata and Chennai. These are the 4 places of sitting of tribunal, but mainly the principal seat is New Delhi. Then Indian Council of Forestry Research and Education. This is an autonomous organization under again MOEF. Headquarters is in Dehradun, and mainly, as the name suggests, it is for forestry research and for education and for disseminating information. So they are mainly engaged in imparting forestry education, improvement of plantation tree species, improving quality, yield and productivity to meet demand for domestic consumption by industries, right? So this is in Dehradun. Then there is Wildlife Crime Control Bureau. It's again a statutory body under Wildlife Protection Act 1972. It is under Ministry of Environment and Forest, and the main functions include collecting and collating intelligence related to organized wildlife crime activities, to establish centralized wildlife crime data bank, assist foreign authorities and international organizations to facilitate coordination and universal action for wildlife crime control, advise the government of India on issues related to wildlife crime. Now, I had told you in part 1 of Environment Current Affairs, I had told you 2 operations, that is Operation Thunderbird and Operation Safe Karma. That was mainly launched by this particular organization, that is Wildlife Crime Control Bureau. I have discussed this already in part 1. Then Bombay Natural History Society. This is also another organization. It was founded in 1883, one of the largest non-government organization in India. It's an NGO in India engaged in conservation and biodiversity research. Okay, it publishes Journal of Bombay Natural History Society. and many prominent naturalists like ornithologist Salim Ali, they have been associated with this organization. It is the partner of BirdLife International in India. Okay, so this is all about the main conventions and organization that we have discussed. Do mention the answers of the questions that I've asked you in this lesson in the comment section. If you want me to complete the last part, that is part 5 of environment, do mention it in the comment section. Thank you.